Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. I got an email from Dr. Shealy saying that he would be broadcasting from home with me today. The clinic is closed for Decoration Day, and we don't have Dr. Shealy yet. So it's going to be just me. It might be just me for the entire broadcast. If so, I'll be telling you about some tips from my unwritten or unfinished, unpublished, not for sale book. If you'd like to call, we'll pay for the call, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line is up and running, provided by Global Star, 712-770-9418, 712-770-9418. Jason, why don't we start with that clip? That's a clip that I wrote and recorded many years ago, 6 years ago. It's about Memorial Day. And some of my thoughts about Memorial Day. It's very, very hard to find. It's on YouTube. And I believe that if you do a search, you will not find it, unless you go to the Ron Gibson channel and then search for Vincent Finelli, USA Prepares, Memorial Day, if you want to share this with friends and family. Jason, would you mind playing that? The federal government partial shutdown has taken a dire turn for our country. Politicians have shown their true colors. They've demonstrated that they are not on the side of we the people. Our World War II memorial belongs to us. It's a remembrance of the ultimate price many have paid, losing life, limbs. Many have been wounded, but all have been scarred for their entire lives. The National Park Service has been ordered to make life difficult for us. Exactly who is responsible for these actions? My father volunteered to fight for our country in World War II, to protect and defend her from the attack by the Imperial Japanese Navy. His brothers enlisted. All the men of fighting age in our family enlisted. My dear friend Paul, now deceased, recently would tell me over and over just how important that honor flight from Missouri to Washington, D.C. was. He had the opportunity in the final days of his life to visit the World War II memorial. It was a memorial to him and those like him who fought to defend the United States of America. He rekindled friendships, the memories, the shared tears. All those serving in World War II who saw killing action were permanently scarred, including Paul and my father. The haunting memories of the burning bodies, the torn flesh, the rotting flesh were ever present until their deaths. And our federal government has set up barricades to keep wheelchaired veterans, 80 to 90-year-old men, and their chaperones out of our World War II memorial. Those same 80 to 90-year-old veterans served in the Army, the Navy, and the Marines. Veterans pushed their wheelchairs right through the barricades, the same way they acted to win World War II. And they have every right to do so. They have every right to be there. They're on public property. The federal government responded with a forklift and 7 employees to erect more barricades. The federal government escalated with interlocking barricades wired together so our veterans without tools could not get through. Intentionally, the federal government locked down the World War II memorial so our veterans could not get through. Your National Park Service has been ordered by the federal government to block off walking and bicycle trails, so you can't use them. They blocked off the home of our very first president, George Washington. That's located in Mount Vernon, Virginia. The property is not even government property. It belongs to the Mount Vernon Ladies Association. Your National Park Service has been told, make it difficult for us, and they are. My question to you is, are they trying to incite a riot by pushing us around, by pushing around men in wheelchairs who have built this country and prevented us from speaking Japanese and German? They won World War II for all of us. The federal government is out of control. Let me be very clear. I'm not advocating violence in any way, shape, or form from we the people. But I ask those of you in government, there will be a day when you will need to decide whether you will obey unlawful orders or not. And to the police, start thinking about all those tickets you're writing. Do you sleep well at night? Targeting your neighbors? Fining them with points? Increased insurance costs? Fees? Court costs? They can't afford it. We're in a depression. Do you think that those people who you fined and targeted will ever forget? We are America. We're in this together. I suggest you take that stick out of our eye. For more information, 7 hours, Monday through Friday, starting at 10 at night. USAPrepares.com radio network. Right here, 99.3 FM on the Rooster Radio Network. I'm Vincent Finelli. I was thinking about Memorial Day today. And what is it? Well, my parents and grandparents called it by its original name, Decoration Day. The annual day that we Americans remember those who died in wars. The graves of the dead from the wars were decorated with flowers, honoring the memories of brothers, fathers, grandfathers, cousins, uncles, dear friends, and neighbors. The day honoring the war dead now is the last Monday in May. It's not a specific day. It's not a specific date, as it was in 1868, which was May 30th. Because it's not a specific day, such as July 4th, we don't say Happy May 30th to each other, whereas we might say Happy 4th of July, which, by the way, is Independence Day, but it's been twisted to become the 4th of July. It's a day of mourning. It's a day for mourning the dead from wars in which Americans died. Although it's become more perverted in recent days, celebrated as the unofficial start of summer, celebrated by the GDP, having pool parties, beach parties, powerboat outings, and barbecues, it's actually a somber day to remember those who fought and died in battles. Most historians agree that Decoration Day started during the War of Northern Aggression, also known as the War between the States, also known as the Civil War. The graves of the loved ones killed were decorated with flowers. In 1967, Decoration Day was renamed Memorial Day by law. In 1971, a few years later, the day of decoration was moved from May 30th to the last day in Monday. The last Monday in May, so that the GDP would have a 3-day weekend to enjoy reveling, races, barbecues, pool parties, and the like. Instead of remembering the real purpose of Decoration Day, that's what we've been accustomed to doing recently. And although the war from 1861 through 1865 was about states' rights, that war that brought about Decoration Day was taught in public schools to be about slavery and freeing the slaves, black men, women, and children who were forcibly enslaved by people in the Americas. They were sold by merchants merchants in the North to Southerners. They were brought here on ships. And to make history a little bit more complete, Jewish merchants brought slaves to the Americas on Jewish-owned ships. So there's a lot of credit to go around. For some people, we'll do anything for money, including selling other people. Amit in Massachusetts, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Finelli, and good morning, Dr. Shealy. If he's there, I'm not sure. It's Monday, so typically he comes on Monday. So
typically Dr. Shealy, we haven't found him yet. We have called his home, and we receive a busy signal. He's not in the office, and so he might be on the phone with a patient. So I don't know. So it's
today
just
is a Memorial Day. I would rather call it Ascension Day. So he might have something interrupting him. So I had two questions for him. If you permit me, I can tell those questions, or I can call later.
Sure. You can mention those questions. I can jot down some notes, and if and when we hear from him, I can ask him.
Okay. So just as you have that acronym GDP, there's another acronym SAD, that is Standard American Diet. So my first question was, what are his views for colonoscopy for those who don't take the Standard American Diet? That was the first one. And the second is that what are his views on heating food and water in a microwave oven?
Boy, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Dr. Shealy, I can tell you that Dr. Shealy does not use a microwave oven.
We use it only for timer and shelf space.
Right. Maybe to hold down the counter or something like that. But I've been to Norm Shealy's house many, many times. Okay. I have not seen a microwave oven in his home. I have not, at his farm in north of Springfield, Missouri. Dr. Shealy believes that microwave frequencies are injurious to the body, and he believes that 5G is even worse. And 5G, he and I both believe the same thing, that 5G debilitates the body, that it causes it to become more susceptible to maladies, injuries, viruses, and so forth. So it weakens the immune system.
Okay. Yeah, I just say people who I know or who don't care about me, I should say, that no handset, even for 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, LTE, has ever been tested for safety, but safety for human use or human long-term use. But people just brush it off and just don't pay attention to that. So 5G is a monster compared to all these lower Gs. So that's what I think Dr. Shealy practices or takes a position for.
Yeah, one of the things that I might talk about today, I was planning on doing this on Thursday, but I might end up talking about some of this today. But let me share this story with you. Back in the 1990s, I was a computer jockey. I was a computer jockey back in the 1980s. And my family had a computer manufacturing company. And it was really on our farm. We literally had a building on our farm that we dedicated to manufacturing computers. And so we picked the cases, the chassis, the enclosures, the power supplies, the motherboards, the memory, the processors, the peripheral devices like the modems, the video cards, the sound cards, etc. And I sent the entire assembly off to a laboratory. We were in Virginia when we did this. Sent it off to California for measuring the electromagnetic radiation that came out of this computer.
I see.
And so here's what I wanted to, this all ties to exactly what you were mentioning about microwaves. So what I did was I selected a case that was all metal, not plastic. Now there was a plastic front on it, a decorative front, but behind that was a complete metal chassis. And the power supply of this particular computer was in another case, so that the power supply, the electromagnetic radiation coming from the power supply would not confuse the rest of the circuitry in the chassis. Okay? Now, here's what I did. Back in the early days of manufacturing these computers, they were 16 megahertz, 16 million cycles per second processors.
Yes.
And then they became faster, 25 megahertz, 33 megahertz, 40, 50, 100 megahertz, 333 megahertz, 500, 700, 800. Now, ultimately 1,000 and faster. 1,000 megahertz is a gigahertz. And what I used to do is I was a consultant, and I would design the computer systems. I would build them, and then I would install them at the customer's locations. Now, these were hospitals.
Yeah, I remember you had told that you worked for Virginia school systems and...
Well, this is a little bit different.
I think the music is coming.
Yeah. Do you want to hold on?
I'll hold.
Yeah, stay with me, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, and I'll tell you the rest of the story, class. You might find it interesting. And it relates to electromagnetic radiation and the brain and the rest of the body. Ahmed is with us. He's in Massachusetts. I'm Vin Finelli. This is USA Prepares. Looks like it's me today, and we're trying to reach Dr. Shealy. But in the meantime, Amit and I are talking about electromagnetic radiation. I'm sharing a story that I have shared several times on the air before. But the point is, so as these computers got faster, I noticed that as I worked on them, I became more confused. Now, here is the situation. Now, imagine this, class. Imagine a workbench that is carpeted, and the computers are aligned, eight of them wide, side by side, and I'm loading software in the evenings for school systems. And what I would do initially is I'd load software on the first computer, and when it finished, I would load this second software application, then the third, then the fourth, then the fifth, and there might be 50 applications. And I'd load them one at a time. And after I loaded the first application, I could take the disks from that application and go to the second computer and load the applications, and onto the third and the fourth. So instead of waiting for doing one at a time, I had an assembly line. And to check the heating and the cooling of the cases, and I would literally feel the video card heatsink, the processor heatsink, the memory. I would make sure the cables were all secured and tied down properly. And I would do visual inspections while I was loading the software. So I'd have the covers of the cases off. Now, at 16 megahertz, no problem. 25, 100 megahertz, no problem. But when we got up to about 800 megahertz, I became confused. I would literally forget, what did I do to which computer? I didn't have a problem doing that in the early days. So, I'm talking like the year before. So was I losing my mind? And what I found out was I had to write down, make a checklist of all the applications. I'd photocopy it, and I'd say, okay, here's what I did on this computer, and so forth. Well, I decided to experiment. What would happen if I put the covers back on these cases and screwed them down and made a Faraday cage or something close to a Faraday cage of this computer, except for the air inlet vents to cool the chassis and the exit from the power supply? I was fine. So what I learned was, as we got close to a gigahertz or 1,000 megahertz, it confused my brain. But when I shielded my brain from that by closing the cases, I was fine. So then I learned that, as in radio frequency transmissions, the farther you are away from that radio station, the harder it is to get it. the harder it is to get that faraway television station.
Yeah, that's inverse square law. Yes. Yes.
That's correct. And that's exactly what we're teaching right now, Amit, the inverse square law. So distance is your friend. Now, by the way, class, I haven't introduced Amit formally. He's a PhD and a lawyer. Is that right?
Yeah, retired one. Yeah, retired. Fortunately, retired. Yes.
Yeah. And he follows USA Prepares, and he has been for quite some time. And he writes me these magnificent emails. Very, very bright guy, very insightful, lots of intuition, and he's on the air today. So I wanted to introduce you a little bit. I don't know how much you want to share about your background, but it's quite impressive. So
all I would say that I've been involved in the EST and EMC testing of electronic equipment, that is electrostatic discharge and electromagnetic compatibility. So all I can say that better designed power supplies have their own separate shielding, maybe for similar considerations as you described, that they don't interfere with the rest of the circuitry. So I'm somewhat familiar with that testing.
Right. And I'm glad that we're talking about this, because what we have learned, class, is really simple. If you're close to, let's say you're standing in the good old days, like, maybe in January, and you were just talking with a group of friends, you'd all be within a few feet of each other. The farther apart you get, the harder it is to understand what is happening. And what is said. And the farther apart you are from electromagnetic radiation, the better it is for you. So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about microwaves, and distance is your friend, because that was one of the topics that I was going to talk about on Thursday. But we'll do it right now here with our expert, Dr. Amit. We'll be right back. All right, we got some great news, class. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and we've got Amit in Massachusetts, and we've been talking about electromagnetic radiation. And just to round out the discussion, what we've been saying is distance is your friend. So the farther you are away from an electromagnetic radiation type device, the safer you will be from being damaged by it. So if you have a microwave oven, and I'm not recommending you get one, and if you use one, my feeling is keep it as far away from you as possible. Keep it out of a high traffic area if it's going to be in your kitchen. Don't put it where it's going to be blasting you by being close to it. Keep it out of the way, and make sure the door seals don't have any rice or food particles in them. They have to be absolutely clean. So the mating surface of the door to the door frame has to be absolutely clean. Never slam the microwave door, because you could damage the seal, damage the tolerances of which the door fits into the door frame. So be very, very careful with the door, and make sure it's clean. And make sure that it's out of the way if you're going to use it. Never look in a microwave oven. Never. That's beyond crazy to me. It'll do just fine without you looking at it. Dr. Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, any thoughts about the dangers of microwave ovens?
Well, they are so dangerous I don't own one and never have. I don't believe in them. I think they are among the worst of all devices ever created.
Okay. So, class, here's an interesting thing, and then I know Amit's got a whole bunch to share with us. So the police use microwave devices. They take the form of radar guns, and they've had handheld radar guns for years. So the police in their patrol cars will have this device. It looks like a trigger-operated gun, like a taser, and a little bit bigger than that. And it's on a cord. And if they see you, they can just take this old pistol grip gun that transmits microwave radiation. They can aim it at you in your car, and they can determine their speed. Okay. And when they're not using them, typically with all the paraphernalia that they have in their police cruisers, they would put the radar gun on their lap, and it would be humming along, and it would give them testicular cancer. Dr. Shealy, your comments about that?
A deserving bunch, but I'm sorry. You know, I really just don't like a great deal of modern technology. It is the worst in the world, and of course the evil empire is looking to get more so.
Amit, back to you.
Yes, sir. That is what I can recall from another RBN show. That is Mr. John Moore's show, where an electronics expert, Mr. Tom Berryhill, comes on, I think, Tuesdays and Fridays. So he said that some Motorola walkie-talkie was designed, but I think at about 900 megahertz or some similar frequency, the antenna length was just maybe 1.5 inch or less than that. So when they were talking or using that walkie-talkie, the antenna was very close to eyes or eye region. So they had to redesign the antenna so that the radiation was not very strong into the eyes of the user. Other thing I can recall from Mr. Berryhill.
That is a great point. And so we have these digital cordless phones. They're everywhere. And they are using microwave frequencies. A lot of people hold them right against their head, and they can transmit from that handheld in-the-house type landline wireless telephone to the base station in their house, and they think that's really great. Well, it is a microwave frequency. And although it's not a cell phone, it's similar in many ways. And you're absolutely right, because that, when you're on a telephone, you're very, very close to the eyes. I mean, within 2 inches? And that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Dr. Shealy, what are your thoughts about the microwave frequencies that come out of cordless phones, cell phones, and eye damage?
Well, as you know, I don't own one and never will. I absolutely refuse to put a dumb phone to make my brain dumber under any circumstance. They are, well, almost like looking at the microwave.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, class, you can be absolutely certain that all microwave ovens leak. All microwave ovens leak, regardless of whether it's made by Sharp, Panasonic, KitchenAid, whatever label it has on it. It probably came from an Asian country, Korea, Taiwan, maybe if you're lucky, Korea if you're lucky, most probably China. They have limited life expectancies, and they all leak, all of them. And not only do they leak, there are other things that leak. For example, I was hired to be the primary consultant for the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. And my job was to automate the entire city, which would be the police department, the fire department, the city hall, the mayor's office, parks and recreation, the entire city government. And it was spread out over a number of buildings. And one of the buildings was the airport. And during my attempt to automate the airport, I went into the control tower. And that's where those guys and gals spend their time looking out windows, looking at screens, and there's radar above there. And then in a room in the center of the control tower is a lot of electronic equipment. I went in the room just to see what was what and what I needed to automate, and I could not do it. I became so confused and so dizzy just walking into this room with this massive amount of electronic equipment on rack upon rack upon rack. I could not think. I'm not kidding. Dr. Shealy, any comments about that?
Well, it's all part of the whole nonsense, and anything that doesn't make common sense is nonsense, but this is among the worst. And it's damaging to your brain. We have unequivocal evidence of that. And we've known for 30 years that people who use these stupid, dumb phones double the incidence of brain cancer.
I don't remember.
Add more things to this discussion?
Sure.
Okay. One is something Dr. Shealy has already cautioned, that someone has to be out of his mind to use an electric car or hybrid car or something like that. And I heard something confirmatory from Mr. Tom Berryhill that in a hybrid car, he tried to install some electronics like a transceiver or ham transceiver, and it was very, very difficult to quiet the car electrically, in the sense that interference from so many sensors or computers or chargers did not go into the ham transceiver equipment. So that is one part. And the second is that the popularity of these wearable devices like Fitbit watches, so on and so forth. So I call those idiots that you are running another local oscillator on your wrist apart from the mobile phone, which is in your pocket or wallet or wherever. But people just don't pay any attention at all that watch like Fitbit or Apple or whatever is another mobile phone. So they are having double radiation. If they have a Bluetooth device in the ear, that's the third local oscillator at a couple of gigahertz running so close to their brain. But nobody pays attention to that. That's all.
Well, let's face it, the vast majority of people are not paying attention to life. They're ignoring too many bum things.
Well, Dr. Shealy, let's get really specific about what Amit is talking about. He's talking about a local oscillator strapped, not in your pocket, but strapped to your wrist. Now, what is the possibility of this device running at megahertz frequencies that is transmitting 24/7, as long as you're wearing this thing, that is in direct contact, no air gap between the device and your skin, direct contact. What is your concern, or is there a concern about bone cancer or cellular damage wearing a transmitter on your wrist?
Also, cardiac damage, because other than your brain, the most sensitive electrical organ in your body is your heart. And these things carry an increased risk that you're going to wind up with auricular fibrillation, or atrial fibrillation is now called, and other problems, including immune deficiencies, cancer.
Amit, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you spared that Bluetooth ear devices, so it's logical to think that what they will be doing. But I think that's another peril, unnecessary peril being faced by the users every day. So that's all I would say. And if you could just tell Dr. Shealy about my colonoscopy question.
Why don't you ask him?
Yeah, Dr. Shealy, I want to know your opinion on desirability of colonoscopy on people who stay clear of the standard American diet.
Well, the standard American diet sucks, and I'm being kind because I'm on the radio. Let's face it, 80% of the food eaten in this country is junk, Junk. Therefore, it is damaging to your entire body.
Okay.
And what about people who do not eat the standard American diet, that don't eat junk from McDonald's, Burger King, Arby's, Carl's Jr., and the like? People who actually eat good, fresh food. Do you think that they need to consider a colonoscopy, or if there are no symptoms, or not?
I personally think that if they do have a good diet and no symptoms, there's no need for a colonoscopy. I think the chances of finding something are less than the chances of damage from the colonoscopy.
Thank you.
And Dr. Shealy, can you describe the colonoscopy process? So, for those who have never ventured to even think about this is if you get a chance to look at the equipment class, I think you'd say, I tell you what, I mean, to use
you're going to do what to me?
to use Joey's words, Joey in Michigan. Let me think about that. which really means
well,
he's not going to do it.
Take a small garden hose and imagine sticking it in your anus. And not only in your anus, but all the way up your colon and across to the other side. I mean, wow.
How long is this, Dr. Shealy? We're not talking about a few inches here.
No. We're talking about, what I would say, 24 inches at least.
24 inches. Class, this thing is the diameter of like a 5/8 inch standard garden hose.
Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding. And where has it been before it got to you? Class, I know this is radio, and we've been talking about colonoscopies. Amit's with us in Massachusetts, and he raised the question. And so let me just try to explain it to you this way. Dr. Shealy said that the device that goes up into the colon is about 24 inches long. Now, if you want to know how long that is, stretch your arm out, okay? Stretch your arm out, and from the tips of your fingers, okay, to your shoulder, that's about 24 inches long. So, all right, now, then to get an even brighter picture of this, take your thumb and your forefinger and put them together, okay? The circle that's made on the inside is a little bit larger than the diameter of this device. And there's a prep that goes with, to prepare for this. They want to make sure that they're not going to bump into anything when they do this procedure. So they have you drink this solution. And this solution will evacuate your digestive system all the way to your stomach. And so there won't be much in there to go bumping into. And Dr. Shealy, what is the risk of just doing that, just drinking this solution that will put you on the toilet for an evening? I mean, you're going to be tied to the toilet. I mean, you don't have to be. It's just a mess if you don't get tied to one.
It's dangerous. That's all you can say. It's risky to your life and health.
And aren't there risks for those with ventricular dysfunction, congestive heart failure? Because they're going to be drinking this about a gallon of polyethylene glycol. It is really slippery stuff. And it's so slippery, anything in your intestines comes flying out. I mean, flying out. It's like having diarrhea for hours on end. And they want you to keep drinking it. They want you to drink the whole thing. The instructions say, drink the whole thing. And they give you a time limit to drink it. And hardly anybody can do it. I mean, you've got to be huge in order to have the volume to drink as much as they want you to drink. And you will be empty by doing this.
I have two more thoughts.
Okay.
Could I say that?
Sure.
Yeah. One is anecdotal in the sense that I have a neighbor who is across my street. So he once told me that his brother developed the colonoscopy machines in the technical sense, not the medical sense. But his brother's unequivocal recommendation was never have it done unless there is a symptom or unless there is a very compelling reason. So that was part one. And part two is the other chemical which made me terrified. That is, when I turned 50, I think as a part of standard of care, my physician recommended me. And he said that they also administer some pharmaceutical which makes one forget what happened during that procedure, just to make people more comfortable and not think about that, so on and so forth. So I got really terrified by this memory altering or memory impacting chemical. I said, no, I don't, if I have to get that done, I'll get that done, but I don't want to be made to forget that. So that's another chemical maybe Dr. Shealy can educate us more about. But I was very terrified of this memory altering chemical.
Dr. Shealy, your thoughts about the memory altering chemical And I know what Amit is talking about. He's saying that the doctors and the nurses, if you say, does this hurt? They'll say, oh, you won't remember a thing.
Exactly.
That's what he's talking
something like that.
Well, as with all drugs, especially those that affect your mind and your brain, they are dangerous. I don't like one of them. There's not one in the world that I would like or even consider prescribing.
Amit, here's something that might connect some of the dots. I once asked a nurse about circumcision for our children, and the nurse said, "Oh," I said, "Is it painful?" Well, they won't remember it. They won't remember.
Yeah, that's enough said, I should say.
I've got some puppies here. I've got, I don't know, maybe they're 13 weeks old, and they're German Shepherd puppies. And they are completely dependent on us. I mean, if we take care of them, that's good for them. If we abuse them, that would be terrible for them. And when you think about it, things are done to people who don't know what's happening, like these puppies. They really don't know what's happening. I mean, I could poison them, or I can give them a nutrition, and they don't know. They trust me. And I think one of the things that we're talking about is a trust issue here, and we shouldn't all be placing trust in people that we don't know, because if you read about some of the risks of a colonoscopy, including but not limited to death, there are plenty of complications that you might say, you know what, let me think about it. Amit, would you like to? Yeah, like Joey. Would you like to hold Amit?
I think I'm done. Thank you. There must be another caller. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. Bob in Michigan is on the line. Bob, I'd like to ask you to hold for about 4 minutes, and I'll tell you why. Jason is prepared to play a clip that I produced in October 4th, 2013, in response to the closing of the World War II memorial by former President Barack Hussein Obama. We'll be with you right after this plays. 4 minutes, 10 seconds. Jason, are you ready? The federal government partial shutdown has taken a dire turn for our country. Politicians have shown their true colors. They've demonstrated that they are not on the side of we the people. Our World War II memorial belongs to us. It's a remembrance of the ultimate price many have paid, losing life, limbs. Many have been wounded, but all have been scarred for their entire lives. The National Park Service has been ordered to make life difficult for us. Exactly who is responsible for these actions? My father volunteered to fight for our country in World War II, to protect and defend her from the attack by the Imperial Japanese Navy. His brothers enlisted. All the men of fighting age in our family enlisted. My dear friend Paul, now deceased, recently would tell me over and over just how important that honor flight from Missouri to Washington, D.C. was. He had the opportunity in the final days of his life to visit the World War II memorial. It was a memorial to him and those like him who fought to defend the United States of America. He rekindled friendships, the memories, the shared tears. All those serving in World War II who saw killing action were permanently scarred, including Paul and my father. The haunting memories of the burning bodies, the torn flesh, the rotting flesh were ever present until their deaths. And our federal government has set up barricades to keep wheelchaired veterans, 80 to 90-year-old men, and their chaperones out of our World War II memorial. Those same 80 to 90-year-old veterans served in the Army, the Navy, and the Marines. Veterans pushed their wheelchairs right through the barricades, the same way they acted to win World War II. And they have every right to do so. They have every right to be there. They're on public property. The federal government responded with a forklift and 7 employees to erect more barricades. The federal government escalated with interlocking barricades wired together so our veterans without tools could not get through. Intentionally, the federal government locked down the World War II memorial so our veterans could not get through. Your National Park Service has been ordered by the federal government to block off walking and bicycle trails so you can't use them. They've blocked off the home of our very first president, George Washington. That's located in Mount Vernon, Virginia. The property is not even government property. It belongs to the Mount Vernon Ladies Association. Your National Park Service has been told, make it difficult for us. And they are. My question to you is, are they trying to incite a riot by pushing us around, by pushing around men in wheelchairs who have built this country and prevented us from speaking Japanese and German? They won World War II for all of us. The federal government is out of control. Let me be very clear. I'm not advocating violence in any way, shape, or form from we the people. But I ask those of you in government, there will be a day when you will need to decide whether you will obey unlawful orders or not. And to the police, start thinking about all those tickets you're writing. Do you sleep well at night? Targeting your neighbors? Fining them with points? Increased insurance costs? Fees? Court costs? They can't afford it. We're in a depression. Do you think that those people who you fined and targeted will ever forget? We are America. We're in this together. I suggest you take that stick out of our eye. For more information, 7 hours, Monday through Friday, starting at 10 at night. USAPrepares.com radio network. Right here, 99.3 FM on the Rooster Radio Network. I'm Vincent Finelli. Okay, so that was my response to Barry Soetoro's closing of the World War II Memorial in the parks here in the United States in 2013. And if you want to share that, you'll have to go to the Ron Gibson channel on YouTube, and it's called Vincent Finelli, Response to Closing the World War II Memorial, WWII Memorial. And it was able to get 2 thumbs down. So thank you for voting that down. Bob in Michigan, you're on with Dr. Norm Shealy.
Yeah, there's all kinds, unfortunately. I wanted to ask the doctor now, you were talking about the colonoscopy. What are the symptoms that where you think a colonoscopy might be called for?
Well, if you are having blood in your stool, for instance, you look down and you've got this black tarry mess, that means you're bleeding somewhere, usually above the rectum. And that is an indication for finding out what caused that bleeding.
Dr. Shealy, can that be done through another less invasive procedure?
Well, a barium, enema, so-called, where they fill the colon with barium, is not quite as good, but it comes close. If there's a significant sized polyp or cancer or something, it's likely to show up on a barium enema.
And barium is radioactive, correct, Dr. Shealy?
No. It's radio opaque, not active.
Okay. Okay. So is radiation used at all with the barium cocktail?
Well, X-ray is radiation. Whether it's not therapy, but you're exposed to some radiation in all X-ray.
Okay. And when you talk about bleeding, you won't see red blood, like if you cut yourself. You're talking about black color.
Blood, yes. Red blood is likely to come from hemorrhoids.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Bob, what other thoughts do you have?
Well, there's another test that they, where you give them a sample of your stool, and supposedly they can see whether you have any symptoms that need to be looked at. Well, what can the doctor comment about that test?
Well, it does. It can be used for various things, including what's called occult blood. That is, you don't see it as blood, but you can pick up, small amounts of blood that are not enough to turn the stool black. And, of course, parasites of various kinds.
I see. So that test, that would be, for older persons, might be a test to submit a sample for.
Well, yeah, it's certainly a lot simpler and more friendly.
Yeah.
Dr. Shealy, when I was very young, my father would say, whatever you do, don't strain when you're on the toilet. Don't strain. And, I'm talking about, I don't know, 3 years old. What's the medical reason for that?
Well, obviously, if you have to strain, you could cause some kind of bleeding from the great pressure inside the colon. And other than that, I don't know of any real problem from straining, but obviously it's not pleasant.
How about hemorrhoids?
Well, yes, of course. When you push down like that, it could lead to the development of hemorrhoids because it does push blood down into that part of the distal part of the rectum.
So the big concern, as I'm hearing it, is if you have red bleeding, it could be hemorrhoids. If it's black, that's something a little more serious, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And hello?
Yeah.
Yep, you're on.
I'll tell you a good treatment or cure to treat hemorrhoids is the use of A&D ointment. I found that very helpful.
That is quite true, yes. And preparation H apparently works. I don't know personally, but I've been told it does.
Yeah.
Dr. Shealy, what about vitamin E instead of preparation H and A&D?
Taking vitamin E.
No, I mean applying it on a Q-tip.
Well, any kind of healing local material could be helpful.
I understand. We used to apply A&D ointment on our children when they at certain times. I mean, very infrequently. And I believe, if I remember correctly, and this is almost 40 years of memory now, I believe it said something on the label like, "Do not take this internally." Now, I don't think
they. Yeah.
Well, I don't think
okay to use it in the rectum.
It's okay to use it in the rectum?
Oh, in the vagina. For
A&D.
women after menopause, vaginal dryness is a common complaint, and the simplest, safest thing is vitamin A&D ointment.
Okay, now is A&D a petrochemical? Is it a petroleum product? Am I remembering this correctly?
Well, it's Vaseline plus vitamins A and D. I don't know what Vaseline is made from.
I believe that's an Exxon Mobil product, or Texaco, or American, or BP. Let's find out. I'm doing a quick search, but please continue, Bob.
Oh, well, I think that's mostly what I wanted to comment about, but I'd like to talk to you, get in touch with you off the air sometime. I've got a business proposal for you.
Does it involve work?
Oh, come on now.
One of the things I need to go see Dr. Shealy about is my allergy to work.
Yeah, I'm sure they got pills for that. Hey,
right. So you've got.
It's talking about making money.
Send. I'm allergic to doing that too. It seems that way anyway. But you've got my email address, don't you, Bob?
Well, yeah, I've sent you a few. I haven't heard back, so I was wondering if I've still got the right email.
I believe you do. I didn't think they needed responses.
Yeah, it's something like instructor at,
Yeah, that seems to be working. Yeah, just send it to that, and I'll call you in a couple days, okay?
Okay.
Probably be in the evening.
Well,
All right.
By the way, Ben, Vaseline is made from petroleum.
Yeah. Okay, so Bob, be careful with that Vaseline. All right. So, Dr. Shealy, no innuendo intended. I'm just being serious. All right, Dr. Shealy, and I'll be right back. So, during the previous hour, we heard this news clip, and there was this woman from New Jersey, and she was just, she had it, and I'm paraphrasing, and she wanted to get away. She didn't want to have the virus ruin such a big holiday as Memorial Day. So some people think that Memorial Day is for hot dogs and barbecues and for power boating and races and automobile races and, playing games. And that's what they think it is. It's Decoration Day, and it's to honor the dead of the war. There's nothing joyful about honoring the dead. It's a somber time. And Dr. Shealy, did you have any comments on my clip from 2013?
Well,
Memorial Day.
It was great. Well done.
Well, thank you. I would, I had a dear friend. His name was Paul, and he did get on the honor flight to go to the memorial. And there are a lot of memories for those guys who fought in the wars, and it was just, there aren't many left, if any left, and they were all scarred, absolutely scarred for life, regardless of what they did. It took them right out of whatever they were doing and put them in harm's way, every single one of them. Even being on a troop ship in the Pacific, going to fight the Japanese was just being on the ship during pleasant times is dangerous, let alone being strafed and bombed by Japanese kamikazes. And class, it's hard to believe this, but the Japanese would get in a plywood airplane made by Mitsubishi. I'm sure you've heard of those guys. They make cars too. And these airplanes were flimsy, and they didn't have landing gear. The idea was, once the pilot took off, it was a one-way trip, and they were to inflict as much damage as possible and ultimately kill themselves in inflicting the final amount of damage. So what they would do is they would shoot with their machine guns until they were out of cartridges. They would drop the bomb, hopefully for them. I mean, they would think the best place to drop that bomb would be down the smokestack of the ship, of the American ship. And then when out of ammunition and out of almost fuel, the last thing that they would do is drive that plane into a ship and inflict as much damage as they could, and they would try to sink the ship that way too. So they would try to strafe, kill, maim, do as much damage as they could, drop the one bomb that they had, and then pilot the airplane to do the final amount of damage. That's what we were facing. So even being on a troop ship was terrifying. And my dad said that, imagine we were number 57 out of the flotilla, and 57 and 75 got transposed, and we were in the wrong place in the flotilla because the numbers were reversed. And he said the other ship, if he was in 57, number 75 was the one that got strafed, bombed, and crashed into, and the men were jumping out of the flaming ship into the waters with no place to go. He said it was absolutely terrifying. And he said that there was a tank on top of the troop ship. Now, our tanks were gasoline powered. And he thought that the safest place, he was just, a teenager. He thought that the safest place to be while the Japanese were strafing the ship with their machine guns was to get under the tank. Pretty scary. So when you think about Memorial Day, previously known as Decoration Day, it's not a fun holiday. It's to remember those who have died in war, starting with the War of Northern Aggression, known as the war between the states, known as the Civil War, when when family members would decorate the graves of their families. So that's what this is about. It's not about fun and games. And Dr. Shealy, when we come back, can you share with us your thoughts about restless leg syndrome? What is it? What is it like? What causes it? And what could we do about it? Restless leg syndrome. Dr. Shealy is a medical doctor. Website, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com, normshealy.com. Class Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. And not everybody knows this, but innuendo is Italian for preparation H.
I did not know that.
Now it's widely reported that innuendo is Italian for preparation H. Dr. Shealy, restless leg syndrome, can you tell us what it is, what causes it, what we can do about it?
It mostly occurs at night when you're trying to sleep and the legs are jerking and moving and waking you up and uncomfortable, and it is always associated with magnesium deficiency.
Very good. Very good. Yep.
It will never be well treated by taking magnesium orally. It's a wonderful place to rub magnesium lotion.
So someone with restless leg syndrome, do they, if they use your spray, or your lotion, would you recommend, now you put it on your butt, get out of the tub, shower, and, put some on your butt. What about putting it on the chest? That's what I do, Dr. Shealy. I just spray it on my chest.
Anywhere, of course. But in the case of restless legs, I would actually put it on the calves.
On the calves. Okay. What about on the bottoms of the feet? Is it absorbed better or worse on the bottoms of the feet? I've heard that.
Well, it is absorbed well, but most of us have somewhat callous soles of the feet. And if you put it every day on the soles of your feet, they begin to soften up, and your feet become more sensitive to walking barefooted.
Okay.
You develop like a baby's feet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, how long does it take for the magnesium in your magnesium lotion or in your magnesium spray to enter the body? Is it very quickly? Is it minutes? Is it hours?
I think it's within 30 to 60 minutes.
30 to 60 minutes. Okay. Now, and many of us shower once or twice a day. So when we shower, are we removing most of it, some of it?
It doesn't matter by that time if it's been at least an hour.
Okay. All right. So class, if you want to learn more about this, and this is not a commercial, I use magnesium spray. I absolutely do. And it absolutely works. And I know for a fact that it will stop restless leg syndrome in one day. I know that for a fact. At least for me. And
I have many people report the same.
Okay. Dr. Shealy, so in Mexico, because of this corona panic resulting from the coronavirus, they are spraying via aircraft, overhead. So it's going to be really tough unless you're inside to minimize your inhalation of whatever this spray is that they're spraying. And I don't know what it is. And I was looking at a news report that Smithfield has a problem. They've got people who work at their plants are infected with the coronavirus. They have, as a matter of fact, in one Smithfield location, there are 140 employees. This is in Los Angeles, at a pork processing plant in Los Angeles that makes the famous Dodger dogs. Now, I didn't know that there was such a thing as Dodger dogs because I don't go to baseball games, but these are a pork wiener is what they call it, and they're sold at the Dodger games. And the plant that makes these is owned by Virginia-based meat manufacturer, the giant Smithfield Foods Corporation, which is owned by the Chi-Coms, the Chinese communists. And so they have at least 140 employees that have tested positively. Dr. Shealy, if they have tested positively and they are preparing food, is there, and we've talked about this, but let's talk about it again. Are you concerned about the virus getting on the food and having a happy time on the food until it's consumed?
Absolutely. It should be banned. Nothing coming out of that plant should be eaten. It should be destroyed.
Okay, well, all right. And how long would you be concerned? So if you were able to buy hot dogs that were processed, manufactured in that plant, and you were able to buy them at the grocery store, for example, and I don't know if you can, but if you were able to, and we'll just link this to any hot dog, would you be concerned about taking that home and handling it and getting the virus on you and handling the uncooked raw food?
Yes.
Okay. And what about people? It's amazing. So, class, it's clear. It's absolutely crystal clear that we're talking about profit before lives. That's what this is all about.
Well, that's the pharmacomafia at its best.
Yeah, it's another component of it. So, Dr. Shealy, have you heard about, remember when we used to have those meetups at Ziggy's on Sunshine and Glenstone in Springfield, Missouri? You remember those, the good old days, right? Okay. Well, right across the street, there is a little strip mall right across the street from Ziggy's, where we used to have our meetups. There's a strip mall, and the second Missouri hairstylist who worked while showing the coronavirus symptoms tested positively after a coworker. So two of them tested positively. They're cutting hair, and now they've potentially exposed 140 clients to the coronavirus because they had symptoms and they went to work. Now this is, so people say, yeah, but I don't know. It's, I hear about this stuff, but, nobody I know. Well, right across the road or the street in Springfield, Missouri, a hairstylist and another hairstylist, both infected. The first one infected or exposed 84 customers and 7 coworkers. Now, they're not going to name the hairstylist because they would probably be banned from getting employment, for the rest of their lives. But this is a problem. And where was it done? At a company called Great Clips, Missouri. Have you heard that story, Dr. Shealy?
I have not heard that story, but I'm glad to say that now for 13 weeks I've not had a haircut at a local place.
There's a young guy who does some videos in the arena that we're in. He calls himself the Ice Age Farmer. And, he used to have a nice short haircut. Now he looks pretty scruffy. Kind of like me. And so you can tell those who are taking this seriously by the length of their hair. Now my hair is really long right now, really long. I mean, I'm right there with Michael Landon, Peter Falk, Columbo. I mean, my hair's that long right now. I haven't had a haircut probably since December.
Well, I've actually had a friend of a friend come in twice and cut my hair.
Mm-hmm. So you know this person is not infected.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So here's what the guy, Clay Goddard is the director. Clay, C-L-A-Y, Goddard is the director of the Springfield Greene County Health Department. He said that the salon kept impeccable records that are being used for contact tracing. However, he said, he warned that the state could easily be overwhelmed should similar cases crop up. Quote, "I'm going to be honest with you. We can't have any more of these," end quote, Goddard said at a news conference. "We can't make this a regular habit or our capability as a community will be strained." That's what he said. So, of course, the company, Great Clips, says that, we're doing everything and we're on your side and we want to help you. And, I'm paraphrasing. And that's what they all say. Just like, Smithfield Foods says, we're working really hard and the next thing, back to Smithfield. Those guys are now spraying something in their plant. What is it that they could be spraying that would would kill this virus that would be safe if it got on the equipment that is used to process your food? What could that possibly be? Dr. Shealy, are you concerned about the...
I can't think of anything that would be useful that would be safe.
Yeah, and we're talking about residue now.
Yeah, I know.
Let me give you an example. So in our kitchen, there are certain knives that we like to use that, there are certain tools that we use that we like them because they work best for us. And when these knives become dull, I sharpen them with a sharpening stone. I take the stone, I put it under the sink with a little bit of water as a lubricant, and I sharpen the knives. Now, when I'm done sharpening those knives, I don't just rinse them off. I wash them off, and I use paper towels to make sure I get all the possible particles that are left from the sharpening stone and the knife blade itself. I want all of them off. I don't want those to go in my food. And I know they're there. And I also know I can't get them all off. That's one of the reasons I don't go to a restaurant, because I don't think they pay attention as much as I do. And I'm not even confident that I'm doing it as well as I need to. I mean, I'm trying. It takes me a long time to clean a knife after I sharpen it. But the point is, do you think that it's possible that a food processor would be as concerned about the particles, the atoms, the molecules of whatever it is they're spraying, that they get it all off before it gets into the food? My suggestion is, I don't think so.
The fact
I think they
sold, so to speak, to the Chinese means they don't think.
And that brings up another point. Dr. Shealy, when we look back, I'm looking across the studio desk here. I've got 3 monitors. They're all made in China. They say Dell on them, a nice U.S. Brand name. They say Dell. Just about the keyboards say Dell, and they're made in China, communist China. The mice that I'm using are from communist China. And I bought all the stuff used. But what I'm saying is, when we think about what we have allowed to happen, what's going to happen after we realize that we've lost grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters to this virus that came from China? Are you going to keep doing that? Are you going to keep buying those LG products? Those I don't know if Samsung is made in China or Korea, but are you going to buy those products that say made in China on the bottom? Are you going to keep doing that? In my
opinion, any company that has sold its soul to China needs to go out of business and immediately bring itself home or go away forever.
I agree. And in class, it's entirely possible that we can make monitors. We used to. It's entirely possible that we can make keyboards. We used to. There's a company called Keytronic. They made one of the best keyboards in the world. I don't think they make them anymore. We can make power strips. We can make metal oxide varistors that go in surge protection devices. We can make microphone mixers and microphones. We can make all of these things.
Nothing that can be made in this country should be made in China. Nothing. I
absolutely agree. And you should hold, class, in my opinion, you should hold accountable to anybody who shows off that new Chi-Com TV, or that new Chi-Com computer, or that new Chi-Com phone, or that new car with Chi-Com parts. You should boycott China. They killed people in the United States. Dr. Shealy, I've been monitoring my blood pressure. I wanted to know, what's happening. And I'll tell you what mine is. 126 over 69, heart rate 62. It was high then. And then 116 over 70, heart rate 63. Any comments on that for me at 68?
Superb. Absolutely outstanding.
Here's what I learned. I, as you, like to experiment. Controlled experiments. I don't like to do dangerous things. I don't want to jump into a swimming pool, with no water in it just to see how it feels. I don't do things like that. But here's what I learned. I learned that the absence of sugar in my diet, walking past candy bars and not stopping, walking past foods that have sugar in them, no soda. That plus drinking lots of water lowers my blood pressure.
Absolutely. Sugar is poison, period, in report. It is not a food. It is an artificial substitute for food.
So for those who are taking blood pressure medicine and have a blood pressure cuff and they check their blood pressure, just to see how it's going, how about this as an experiment? And before you do it, let's get Dr. Shealy's opinion. So increase your fluid intake, and unless you have a medical reason to not drink a lot of water. But if you can drink water, stop the sugar and switch to water. And drink half of your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 140, 70 ounces, as Dr. Shealy has told us over the last 10 years. So you take your body weight, divide it by 2, and convert that to ounces. So 70, for a 140-pound person, half of that is 70 ounces of good, fresh, clean water per day. So increase your water intake and stop the sugary drinks and so forth. Stop the sugar and see if that has an impact, positive impact on your blood pressure. Dr. Shealy, is that something that you would recommend that our class do?
Absolutely, for every single human being.
Okay. What about people who have congestive heart failure? Can they still drink that much water?
Most of the time, they still need a certain amount of water just to do metabolism.
Mm-hmm. Now, going back to Bob in Michigan, for the prevention of colon problems and digestive problems, is more water helpful in avoiding problems with digestion in the colon and polyps and cancers and so forth?
Yes.
Okay. So is there any downside?
By the way, since we're speaking of water, remember, if it's city water, it's maybe worse than sugar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Class, we use a filtered water. We use ProPure water filtration here, and there are plenty of good water filtration systems. So carbon will remove many of the toxins in the water. Now, fluoride, I don't know how much carbon block filters will remove. Typically, if you have a Berkey filter, you need a secondary filter for the fluoride in addition to your carbon block filter. But if you have a ProPure water filter, you do not need the secondary fluoride filter to remove fluoride from your water. But carbon will remove the chlorine and some of the heavy metals. So if you have a well, you can do fine with the Berkey water filtration system with the carbon block because you're not putting fluoride in your water if you have a well. But water is really, really important. So, Dr. Shealy, what I've learned is that in Britain, 2/3, 2 out of 3 Britons have piled on pounds during the lockdown, leaving them more at risk for maladies such as the coronavirus. Your thoughts on putting on weight, being at home? I don't understand why they've gained weight at home. I've lost weight. I've literally lost weight.
Well, they probably eat more junk, and they don't move. I mean, even people who just go to and from work probably do more movement during the day than they do sitting at home. Remember, the people who sit all day have the same risk of a heart attack as someone who smokes 1 or 2 packs of cigarettes a day.
Yeah. And next quick question, corn. Dr. Shealy, when you buy corn seeds, not you, but when people buy corn seeds, they may say treated on them. They may not say treated. They are toxic. They're coated with chemicals that are absolutely toxic to even touch. They recommend if you're going to plant some of these chemically coated corn seeds for growing ears of corn, that you wear gloves, not leather gloves, not cotton gloves, but gloves that the poisons won't permeate or penetrate. Dr. Shealy, what are your thoughts about treated seeds versus heirloom seeds that are not treated?
Well, I would not buy junk seeds.
Yeah. And class, most of the seeds are treated. They're colored red, and they're colored green, be very, very careful with them. And our advice is to not use them. Don't use them. Dr. Shealy, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for taking time from your remembrance on Decoration Day.
Sorry that I got tied up at the beginning, but I'm here. Have a good one.
We're glad you got untied. Thank you.